Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. This is a transformation series, mind, body, and spirit, looking at those topics, those things that affect our lifestyle, that change the world. So if you have asked the question, why am I doing this when I know that this is not effective for me? What can I do in a different manner? How is it that I learned something from the past, but what I learned from the past, my children are not even respecting or putting it in place? So today, we're going to look at a topic called life transformation, although we're a transformation series. So we're going to begin looking at the series of life transformation moments and history and how those moments can affect who we are, how we function, what we think is important, whether we're a senior, adult, adolescent, or where we live. Why is this so important? So let us just talk about that. Now, look, we do have the right person with us today. We have a person who is educator at University of Houston. He is a co-pastor, the Shrine of Black Madonna. He is also editor, associate editor, the Fender Network. So we do have, look, he is a father. He has children. I'm not going to tell you how many children he has. He has more than one or two or three or four. Okay. So he knows development. He knows relationships and how history has affected male-female relationships in general, and how it affects our parenting, how it affects the way children look at us as parents. So we have these series that we're going to open up, but we're going to look at how history and what in history. So welcome this morning, Doc Walker. I'm so glad to have you here. You always bring light to a topic. So I wanted to get started. Well, sometimes we don't realize that our audience may be new. And so one of the things that I want you to do is to just help us understand what is how do people differently look at acculturation? What is that?
Well, another word for that might be socialization, right? Because, when we're born, we are socialized by our surroundings, people, culture, traditions into how we function. This is, like you can look at your families and households have different traditions that they do, and they pass them on from generation to generation. This is how we function in our household. This is how we function in our community. When you walk into a room, especially as a child, you make sure to speak to people. That was like one of those rules. And then when you walk into the house, you don't go back outside and go back in and go back outside, because you you're gonna let all the air conditioning go out the room, as
Are you
parents say.
tracking in all kinds of stuff? Yeah.
All that. Are you're gonna have a certain level of respect for your elders, or back in the day, children were raised, you speak only when spoken to. All those things are ways in which we are socialized in terms of how we are supposed to conduct ourselves. Some of those traditions may be positive, some may be negative, but those are the things that kind of shape who we are. And so, like when you have relationships, you got two different people coming from two different socialization frameworks. They come together and they see things different ways because they were raised to function in the world in different ways. But socialization is critically important for individuals, but it's also important for a people. Uh, uh, Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr., his African title and name, Jeramogi Abebe Ajman, he was the honorable. He was the founder of the Shrines of the Black Madonna. He argued that Black people had been niggerized. That was his non-clinical term for the way Black people have been conditioned to believe that we are less than, conditioned, put the interests of whites above their own, conditioned not to trust each other. So all that conditioning created what he called a state of niggerization, um, being socialized to serve others, to accept oppression, to accept a lowly second class status. And so what he argues is black folk need a re-socialization. The niggerization then has us living in what he called a slave culture, a lifestyle, time, ritual, and value system that just promoted that same way of second class living. And so to get out of that, we need a whole new level of socialization, where we learn how to trust each other, where we learn how to love what we see in the mirror, where we learn how to work with one another again. And so socialization, learning how to work together, learning how to accept black authority, um, all those things will then create a new lifestyle, time, ritual, and value system, which is not a slave culture, but a counterculture that seeks to uplift us as a people. But acculturation, socialization, I don't remember the term that you used when you opened us up, but all that is critical for how we are going to live and move in the world, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes, and it's going to have a lot. So I know later on we want to talk a little bit because it does impact education. It does impact parenting and those things. But listen, what there were different terms for African American throughout the years. There were things when you call Negroization, but there was a time that people were called black. There was a time that people were called colored. A time people were called Negroes. Okay, do you perceive or do you remember anything, um the changing of the terms? Was it anything different that happened? What made those terms change over time in general, generally speaking?
From my study, um, it was always about us trying to find a term that we, that we owned and we controlled, and that showed us in the light that we deemed um, acceptable, rather than merely accepting the negative terms that other people placed on us. So even though there have been many terms over the years, um, each time a new term came about, um, it was black people trying to figure out, well, what is something, what what is a word that describes who we are, that pushes us away from, all the negative, the N word, and we're savage, we're, all those things that white society labeled us as. We were always trying to find something that spoke to who we really were as a
And
people. So
maybe
I'm,
even and maybe even Doc Walker, maybe even the visualization
yeah,
of the changing, the perception, the visualization of that name.
right, right. So I'm not mad. Like when I go back and I read something from the 20s and 30s, and folk are talking about we are Negroes. Today, a child hears that and they're like offended. But during that time, we were looking for a term that uplifted us, and we moved from that to black, because black at one time was considered an insult in our communities, to be called black. But when we reclaimed, or not reclaimed, but we rejected the the European definitions that said everything black is negative. When we rejected that viewpoint and began, singing "Say It Loud" on Black and I'm Proud, Black is Beautiful, then black had power, and so we moved from Negro to black. And said, well, then there was this thought, well, black isn't a country, it isn't a land. Where are we from? And so it then moved from Afro America to African America, African American to Pan African, and so those terms, from my perspective, is us searching for something that defines who we are beyond what society says we are.
Define. Uh-huh. And maybe even coming up with each time a more positive way
Right.
of looking and owning. And it seems like over time that the owning had more to do with where you came from. And so when I did a little trip one year, and I noticed that every time I would say African American, they would say Black African American, because of all what was going on in Africa in terms of the transition and the purchase of property and all of that. It was most important to say Black African American, because
Hmm.
there were a lot of other people in Africa. And so it was more important to really say that as you moved around the country or the world.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you had, the history of the Moorish Science Temple, the Nation of Islam. Well, they would say that we are an Asiatic people, or like Noble Drew Ali, he said, no, we are Moors or Moorish Americans. And so that places us in a history that's way older than just these shores right here, taking us back to the Moors, those African sisters and brothers who went into Spain and Southern Europe in 711 AD and ruled Europe for over 700 years and brought Europe out of its dark ages for a second time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you have all those things, but everything, like you said, it's about placing us, about us finding, where we fit in the international, uh, in the world picture, and just reaffirming that we are so much more than what we have been limited to by what other people call us.
I would like to know more about that in the future, about the Moors and ways that we could study our relationship to that. There was something on Facebook, and everybody's been kind of talking about it, and they were saying how we're viewed by other people. So it was this tribe, which I'll have to go and look to see, that they said had green eyes or blue eyes, and how everybody was really saying how ugly they were. Okay, and then when they told the story of the heritage as to how the coloration came about through the origin, like you said, transformation through cultures, the mixing of through the culture of people who were African. And so people were like, oh wow. And so now they're beginning to look at those photos a little bit differently.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because all humanity traces its roots back to Africa. So every hair color, every hair texture, every eye color, all of that, you can find every iteration of human um, skin color, etc., on the African continent right now, on the African continent.
Right
But
now.
but but
That's
but it all comes out of us. So I'm not tripping on which color eye is more beautiful, because it all comes from us, and really it all comes from God.
That's what they were saying. Yes. So one of the things that would be important for us to look at is that if we begin to see ourselves in a certain light, how is that affecting how we live life? You know, if you mention like we changed how we called ourselves, how we viewed ourselves, can we speak a little bit about, so that we can come up with um, a script that maybe people could use, that if our self-esteem is low, or if a name is attached to us in a visualization, how in fact does that affect the change in how we relate to one another, like parenting and relationships.
Well, I guess two things come to mind. Number one, there's that old saying: "It's not what folk call you; it's what you listen to. It's what you answer to." Right, and so that speaks to um, us having ownership over not only the names we are called, but who we are, and not allowing other people's ignorance, prejudices, lack of vision, or whatever um, affect us. Uh, Deion Sanders, in one of his press conferences weeks ago, he said, all these people who are criticizing me, they didn't make me, so they can't break me. Um, I think that's pretty profound, because he recognizes that there is a power greater than all of us that is responsible for us being here, So why are we so worried about these other human beings who don't see our humanity or don't respect it? What the hell with them? Do I respect myself? Do I see my humanity? And if I do, then let me act
Mhm.
and live accordingly. And the second thing I've already forgotten because I've already been talking too much. I was gonna say something else. I know
Well,
I've
it'll come
forgotten.
to you. It'll come to you because they said you're if you have there's so I'm trying to think of the name of the study. Um, it wasn't Erickson, but Erickson and some others studied a person's task, what they
Mm-hmm.
needed to complete at a certain time, and
Mm-hmm.
that if you perceived who you are and who you were then you would be more settled to develop an identity.
Mm.
So one of the things is that during our developing over the period of time, there are different ways, as you mentioned, that people then help their child think about who they are. For example, in our church, there is in the Southwest, in the AME church,
Mm-hmm.
there is a big screen over the pulpit, okay, and it is of an African American Jesus. I
Mm-hmm.
won't say African. I'm gonna say of a dark hue, uh, uh, tightly curled, woolly like hair, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I remember this little girl came in,
Mm-hmm.
and she was sitting behind me, and she said, "They have a fake Jesus on the wall."
Yeah. Yeah. I can believe that. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about um, like I don't know if you can see this, but
Yes.
here's brother Jesus. But I was really thinking about this mural right here. So this is a picture of the mural that was unveiled on Easter Sunday morning. I think it was 1967 or 68. I think it was 67 in the Shrine of the Black Madonna uh, in our mother church in Detroit when Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr. unveiled the Black Madonna and Child. It was so controversial then that he made Life magazine, the biggest magazine at the time,
Yes.
did an article on him. Like, who is this black man who has the nerve to envision Mary and Jesus as black? And um, I show that because you're talking about that's in your well, it's in a whole bunch of black churches now. Back in the day, it was quote
Unusual.
unquote controversial or
Yes.
unusual. But there's a book by Indus Comet Khan, and I think the name of it is What They Didn't Teach You in History Class. But that book shows that the most ancient um, religious iconography in of multiple religions shows the most respected and revered figures in each of those faiths as being black, as being African people, whether it is the Buddha, whether it is someone out of the Hindi tradition, whether it is Muhammad or Jesus or Mary. I mean, the oldest depictions of Jesus and the disciples look like me and you. And so, even though Reverend Klieg unveiled that 18-foot chancel mural in Detroit, Michigan, Easter Sunday morning in the 1960s, and it was controversial, the world had seen these images. Um, the Catholic Church right now um, has a room for. I mean, it's all over Europe. One young man who was a part of our church, he was doing some work down in Mexico, and he was astonished to find out that annually they have this big festival celebrating, the Negro Madonna. One of the popes, I think it was Pope John Paul, as he was growing up as a child in Poland, literally the name of the church that he grew up in was the Shrine of the Black Madonna. So as a child, he grew up. So most of the world knows this. It's black folk who
They don't know. Hmm.
who who look at images of the divine and think they are less than because we've been taught that they are less than.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back to that saying, um, it's not what people call you, it's what you answer to. And so we got to stop answering to all these negative things that they call us. But the only way we can do that is to plug into, our history, our culture, our heritage. And that way, when we see images of the divine, we say, yeah, yeah, yes. And we also can more readily see the God in each other. India Arie, one of my favorite artists, one of her songs is "I See the God in You," but
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the God in a black woman or black man if I can't see the God in myself. And so I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the crux of the work that we have to be about.
Mm-hmm. That I'm writing this down to remind myself. That might be a song that we might be able to use on the 18th.
I see the
So,
God in you.
uh
Yes.
huh, that's right. That's why I was writing it down too, so I can listen to all the words exactly. But one of the things that you're bringing up is that people ask, why is it so important to talk about being African American or to talk about those things? And there are a lot of different reasons. I could come up with some, but you would come up with probably more. One I know for mental health portion of it is that when people tend to know a little bit more about who they are, from whence they come, and those things, they tend to have less destructive behavior, and they tend to have a higher sense of self identity and esteem. You
A
see.
study
Hmm.
a study was done that showed students who took African American studies classes, um, whether it was at the high school level or the college level, their school attendance increased, their behavior got better,
Hmm.
their overall grades got better. And all that speaks to what researchers have always known, that when you are in school or reading books or turning on the TV or watching movies and you see representation that looks like you are more focused, you are drawn in, and it becomes more real and more interesting and more vital to you. And so you do better at everything. And so that representation is absolutely critical. And it's oftentimes Black people that ask that question when we're talking about, like, if I say, well, Jesus was an African, Jesus looked like me and you. Most of the time, it's us that ask the question, well, why has it got to be about race? Um, why can't Jesus be whatever? Well, a better question would be, or they say, well, why do you have to talk about Jesus being Black? Like, why is that important? A better question would be, well, number one, it's historical, but number two, why did people take the effort to show Jesus as something that he was not? Ask that question, answer that question. But it goes back to what we were just saying. There's so much power in representation. And there's a gazillion examples of people who, um, when they, you know, Viola Davis, for example, as a child growing up in horrendous conditions and poverty and in a home where there was abuse going on all the time. She said her life was changed when she turned on the TV and saw Cicely Tyson playing Miss, I think, Jane Pittman.
Yes, yes.
Because that was the first time that she saw someone that looked like her on the screen. Lupita Nyong'o, the beautiful and talented actress, she said when she was growing up, she prayed to God that God would make her lighter. She didn't recognize her own beauty until she opened up a magazine and saw a model from the African continent named Alek Wek. And then she said, not only that, she heard Oprah Winfrey just talking about how beautiful this African model was who looked like Lupita. And so representation opens us to
Yes.
see the beauty in ourselves. And
Hmm.
so Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling.
Well, no, because you're right on with the beauty in yourself. So one of the things is that when one sees the beauty in themselves, when one understands what you're saying, their history, whatever, we're rushed to say, to deny, or to quickly join. So, like what we're saying is like, well, we need to talk about how we can become one. And I was sharing with one of my patients that I'm working with, they were looking at that, and I was like, how can you become one? You become one, the chances increase when each person, just like in a couple relationship, when each person can identify themselves and feel good about themselves, then you can join in a good relationship. And so what
Doctor,
you're speaking about, yes.
you are not only teaching, you are preaching right now. You are literally preaching. Um, what I found, not only in my research, but in my living, is that people who know who they are, who feel good about who they are, whether that is who they are racially or ethnically, who they are religiously, spiritually, or
Hmm.
any other way, those individuals are the ones who are most open to working with other people, most able to respect and see the God and the divinity in other people, people who may look totally different than them, people who come from a different political party or a different religious background. When you are comfortable in yourself, I mean, you were literally saying those words. When you're comfortable in yourself, it makes it. It's almost like a paradox, right? You have to know your specific story and be comfortable and celebrate that. And when you are confident in that, then the universal becomes open. Then you see, your then you see the challenges and the strivings of people all across the planet who have totally different, you know, life histories. You see yourself in them. Man,
Hmm.
you're preaching that word. We're gonna have you come out to the shrine and preach one Sunday.
Listen, listen. But also, one of the things that I noticed is that you can appreciate even your family. So, say when you're talking about that, this movie, I'm not going to say everything going on in that movie is one that we would want to relish or speak about, but it's called The Family Business.
Okay.
So it's and don't ask me about the movie stars, but it's the African American cast,
Mm-hmm.
and it's integrated, but it's primarily African American cast, and they're looking at the same thing that you would look if it was you're American, or whatever gangster type, okay, and or Russian or whatever, and but what it is African American. So there were things in there showing and depicting where people did not feel comfortable about their families, and how when they didn't feel comfortable about their families and where they came from, how they were joining and avoiding their families. So
Mm-hmm.
it was showing couples who were bisexual, who were whatever, in there. But what it showed is that all of this was happening when people, a lot of stuff, anger, violence, killing, more so injuring themselves, wanted to hang them when they did not know who they were or are.
Yeah.
Okay, so the good meaning, one out of all that, good thread of meaning came out of it was that when you're a family, you want to boost your family. You want to be proud of your family. You want to say nice things about your family. You want to find, not that everything is nice, but you want to go in and find wonderful things about it. And then the things that are not, encourage those things to change, so that you could hear people encouraging the other one to go to school or to do this or to better themselves or something like that. You see, and that's something that we seldom now, now that we've become Black African Americans in a sense, really primarily speaking about doing those things. Whereas maybe I could say we're now saying you don't have to do it. You do not have to complete anything. You can start a whole lot of things and not complete. Whereas A few years ago, 15 years ago or so, we were teaching our children, if you initiate something, even if you change your mind, you must follow through because your ancestors taught you to follow through to deal with it. You understand? So you're not a quitter. Now, so now what I'm also seeing, as that is happening, I'm seeing an increase in mental health issues, not only because we're identifying them has increased. I'm perceiving and counting right now that people do not know how to handle anymore change, stability, to follow through when things are difficult. We're losing something, okay, as a
Yeah.
people. Hmm.
Yeah, well, I would say one of those things we're losing is that that spirit of Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu. Um, that spirit of I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. Um, and I mean, life is tough enough for just anybody as it is. Life is always going to have its challenges, its ups and its downs, all those things. But if you're out there and you're disconnected, you're out there um, believing you can handle it all on your own, um, then you're really just making something that's already difficult just that much more difficult on you. And then you think you can handle it on your own, and stuff isn't working out, and then you may internalize that and begin to doubt your own worth and your own value. It almost becomes a, a, a thing that spirals out of control. But one of the reasons for that, I would say, is because we've lost that spirit of community and connection. We were literally, I mean, biologically, we were created for connection, and we're created for relationship. If a baby is born um, and has no a baby born that does not receive touch, scientists have shown the lack of touch negatively impacts that baby's ability to grow intellectually and otherwise. Um, if a child grows up in a family or in a setting where they don't know that they are loved and cared for, that creates other mind, body, spirit negative impacts. Um, we don't learn how to walk, we don't learn how to talk, we don't learn how to do anything without being in connection in community with other people. And so the idea that we've bought into this rugged individualism, we can do it all by ourselves, we're really buying into a poison that has been killing us. Some of us, it's been killing us slow, others it's been killing us fast, but it's literally killing us. And I would say we have to plug back into this idea of community community and connection.
You're so on it. That's an uphill battle because
Yeah.
the environment is breathing oxygen, so to speak, or should I say nitrogen, in a sense for the person to avoid the community. Everything is to stay separate. The way that they're building houses says separate. I went to a meeting and they were saying that now what they're going to do is to turn the driveways and the walkways on the side. So, see, in other words, people will no longer connect with each other because they will move to the side of the building to
Hmm.
go in. And so now so it's just unconscious or conscious, I'm not sure. But all I know is it's a lot of little things that are reinforced to be separate. Old commercials that said, don't let them see you sweat, don't let them know you. A lot of things just have transpired over the years very slowly to do not allow someone else to get to know you, this distrust thing. And some of it may be valid and some not. But I think we need to know when and how and what kinds of things.
And now you can buy groceries, you can buy dinner, you can just go on your phone and have it delivered. You can attend a worship service in your home. You can work in your, all these things, which, on one level, there are conveniences and there are positives to them, definitely, but they're also dangerous in terms of the fact that they remove us from those places where we connected with people. And I think, over the COVID-19 pandemic, I looked at Zoom as a blessing, or StreamYard, since we're on StreamYard, as a blessing because it allowed us to connect with people even in our own spaces. But
Right.
there's still something to be said for real face to face human interaction. And this is coming from an introvert. I mean, I'm introverted, but I still need that connection, that interaction. We all do. I mean, we were literally created for it. And so if we're
Mm-hmm.
allowing ourselves to be removed further and further and further, um, that's going to be a problem. But on the positive side, I do see more and more young people recognizing this and recognizing their need to come together. And
Yes.
so I see a lot of folk, a lot of young black folk, a lot of older black folk
Mhm.
are finding ways, reasons, excuses for coming together physically because they're
Mhm.
recognizing just how important that is to our mind, body, and spirit health.
I want to even say that we're moving away, and I'm really pushing on that, that even when we come on Zoom, the person doesn't want to turn their camera on. And I'm like, wait a minute. I am not going to talk with the black screen up. Please, if you do nothing but introduce yourself, turn on the camera and make connection with people. And the way I'm looking at that, see, when you have your camera on and you're face to face, you're also giving as well as receiving.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you turn your camera off, you immediately cut off others' perceptions or connection with you, but you're able to then take.
I'm seeing your love of books. I'm seeing a brightly lit room, and usually when you're on, I'm also hearing that cat in the background. So that's all that going on, but I get none of that when it's just a black screen. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And so I'm saying when you consciously and psychologically, when you turn on, you're making a statement when your camera is off, whether you know it or not. But when you turn your camera on, you say, I am here, I'm willing to share, I'm going to give. But when you have it off, it's like you all do something so that I can be entertained and I can receive and I can take. You
Hmm.
see? And so it's just unconscious things that are going on all the time, I think, building, transpiring, over time that makes us more closed in and less of what? Community,
Yeah.
less of giving, less of sharing. So, one of the things that we're doing now in the community, as you know, is looking at and asking people ways. So, we'll even be doing more community walks and whatever. How would you like to feel more connected to your community? What do you need in your community? What is it that you're desiring? What would make you take more action? And so there's a thing, become the community that you want. So I have a sign that I use. So become, don't complain. What did you do? What are you doing? Become the community. I wasn't as active out there getting people this year. Usually I have my little blowhorn, my little flyers and stuff. Did you vote? Are you voting? What are you doing? Okay. You gonna complain this year? Don't say nothing. Okay. You put your tennis shoes on and come on out, you know. So one of the things I didn't hear much of that at all. And so I'm
Mhm.
really getting concerned about our community focus as you mentioned.
We need it. We need it. I was in KNG a few days ago, and I was standing between two older black gentlemen, and we're just sitting there having this conversation, just having this conversation, and it was started by the older gentleman that was standing behind me, um, and it just reminded me how much we need that human interaction. And as we're talking, I was wondering how much this interaction he gets if he's not coming out. Like we used to go to the post office, and that would be a place where we would have some interaction. We would go to the grocery store, or to the civic club meeting, or to church, or to this school, or to whatever. So we had it. It was almost like it was built into society,
Mhm.
and we've been unplugging here, unplugging there, unplugging everywhere else. And so, like you said, we're going to have to be very focused and determined to re-plug in and to find new ways in which to have that community.
You're just so good. You're so good. You have no idea. You just gently get on in there and you talk about the real things. So, one of the things, if you had to leave our audience with one thing that you think would actually be to create a moment that would be a good moment for us, mind, body, spirit, or to use whatever we would do to become more community focused, what would that one thing be, you think?
Oh my gosh,
Am I putting pressure on you?
that's a heck of a question. What one thing?
You know how people say, I
Um,
can only do a little bit, but if you can only do a little bit, what would that one thing, or what would that little bit be?
I would say find a community to connect with, whether that is a civic club, a church, temple, or mosque, um, whatever type of human interaction. I think that would be one thing. Um, it could be with family, but you asked for one, I'm gonna give you two. The other thing would be to take time to learn more about you, Dr. Willie Mae Lewis, but not only you and
Yeah,
your family.
there you
Um,
go.
learn
Hmm.
more about that. So that's 1A and 1B.
Well, I'm gonna make C and D. I'm gonna say learn family, but make sure you come to family and
Mm,
go to family to share something that you know or that you find out what you want to know, and
hmm.
maybe do like and I'm encouraging people to have once a month dinners at least with their families. If they have moved away from home, some kind of way, if you're in the area, to go and then share and find out information that people may think insignificant, but if you don't ask, then you will never get the whole story. You will never know how that fits into your wellness, your spiritual healing, all of those things.
Amen.
I want to say thank you for being here today and sharing these moments and looking at how life can be transformed, or the transformation moments in our history that's shaping our lives today. I want to say we're doing this with our own Doc Walker, Associate Editor of Defender Network, co pastor of the Shrine of the Black Madonna, and educator here at the Women's Resource Center in Imani Faith Health Initiative. We're here to help you, we're here to grow and listen to you. So I look forward to seeing you on next week. Renew beliefs, rebuild faith, and reconnect families and communities. For it's not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. If you are a leader in the community, please go to our website, wrc-houston.com. Contact us either at 281-381-2276. Be a part of November the 18th, coming together for our pastors, for leaders in the community to make a difference, to make that change. Instead of talking about it, let's have action about it. So I look forward to seeing you, same place, same station, next week, God willing. Thank you.